All right, great. Let's go ahead and get started. Looks like we have a critical mass of folks joining. I'm sure there'll be some more folks that join in as well. Want to say hello, everybody. Welcome to our community hour. We're going to talk about customer success priorities in 2022. We have an awesome panel here. My name is Mike Red. I'm the CMO at Quala. I'll be our moderator for the session. I'm joined by Jenna Kluger, who's manning our chat. Feel free to drop questions into the chat. There's a Q&A tab there if you want to submit a private question as well. Throughout the discussion, keep the conversation going in that chat. If you have ideas or something's resonating with what you're hearing the panelists say, definitely feel to chime on in and share your experiences there as well. So wanted to dive right in. Let's want to go around the panel. We can start with Tyler and work our way around the virtual room here. Everybody give an introduction of your current company, how customer success works at your business, just to give the community here context. We'll have an icebreaker here, which is worded a few different ways. What is your dream location for your next offsite? Or if you're a fully remote team, what's your dream location for actually getting your team all together at a very cool onsite? So we'll take it from there.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be learning out loud together. My name is Tyler Sellhorn. I'm the head of customer experience at Yak. We do audio first asynchronous meetings. You don't have to default to a video conference. But yes, once upon a time, I used to be a technology-oriented teacher, and now I am a teaching-oriented technologist in the customer success space. Once upon a time, I was teaching 12-year-olds algebra, and now I teach adults how to use their software. I'm also a podcaster. Maybe that's obvious with my setup here, but I am the host of the Remote Show from WeWorkRemotely.com. And I'm also the proprietor of headofremote.xyz. So obviously I'm working inside of the remote enablement B2B space. So that's what I'm about. So my ideal on-site for a remote team would be on maybe you can see in my background here, but I am a sailor. I would love to sail on like a tall ships cruise where we all got to like set the sails together and maybe cook together in the galley and kind of do that sort of thing. So anyways, that's my kind of like favorite idea would be to be on a cruise together on a tall ship where we got to be kind of working and living together in a contained space.
Very fun. Very fun. Really test to make sure everybody gets along well there. Cool. Let's move over to Jennifer.
Hi there, I'm Jennifer Kirkland. I'm our VP of Customer Success at RevolutionParts. RevolutionParts is a product that is dedicated towards transforming the automotive parts industry, which is shockingly very, very interesting. I've had some experience with automotive in the past, and I love having a passion for customer success. I come from product, grew up in sales, and here I am. This is where I love living. In terms of my dream offsite, I had so many thoughts. Like, honestly, my dream is to have an offsite every single month in a different location. But for the sake of the conversation, I'm going to nail down on Portugal, because I was just having a conversation with one of my customers yesterday who was visiting us, and that's where they want to retire. And I'm like, I haven't been there yet. So let me dive deep and explore it. So that's where I would take my team.
That's fantastic. Awesome. All right. And let's pass over to Nitin.
Thanks, Mike. And thanks, everybody, for joining. I'm really eager to be here with the group. So my name is Nitin Walia. I'm the Chief Client Officer at RapidRatings. We are an enterprise SaaS business that helps large corporate entities and financial institutions improve their supplier and third-party relationships through financial health analytics. I've been with the firm for 9 years, and I oversee our CS and delivery operations areas. I think, well, first of all, I can't wait to do offsites and onsites with the team more regularly. I'm in the group of people who's just really eager to get back in person with the folks I enjoy working with so much. I think I would probably go with South Africa, maybe Cape Town. South Africa's got this motto that it's a world within a country, and there's such a diverse range of types of activities and experiences to be had, whether you're an outdoor person, an indoor person, a history person, a contemporary culture and arts person. So I'd love an excuse to get back there. This could be a good one.
That's great. That's fantastic. All right, we can round it out with Lauren.
Thanks, Mike. Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Sickel, the head of customer success here at Quala. We're the only customer success platform powered by Frontline Intelligence, and I'm sure Mike will go into more details about what we do here at Quala. So I'm super excited to join for my first hours of Humans of CS. In terms of offsite, Tyler, I love the idea of going on a ship, and usually that's like my first go-to is like get on a boat, see the ocean, love it. I'm going to go opposite and say, I'd love to get into like a cabin with like a big fire in the woods and just like really get into nature and kind of get away from computers a little bit and really like get with people and just be around the people and really like talk to everybody. I miss people. So the remote part I love, but I really miss like being in an office and being with everybody else. So that's that would be my jam.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, thank you again, panelists. Excited to get into the show. Want to give a brief introduction of Quala, who hosts Humans of Customer Success in this community hour. So as Lauren mentioned, we're a customer success platform. We're powered by Frontline Intelligence. So what does that mean? We're uniquely taking signals from what teams are hearing, what's going on in your product, and making sense of all that, giving you a view of your customers and triggering those customer success workflows for you all with automation triggers. We have some really exciting capabilities we'll announce right after Thanksgiving. They'll help you mine through what you're hearing from customers so you can quantify how many times customers are mentioning a certain feature or a certain issue to give customer success teams and customer teams more broadly that data to back recommendations on what should we do in product, what should we do to improve the overall customer experience. So more to that to come. That'll be after Thanksgiving. So back to our show. So we'll start off, we have a poll that Jenna is going to pop over on the right panel for the folks joining us today. Want to see where folks are as far as what they see 2022 looking for their CS organizations. Will you be in a state of building? Will you be scaling? Will you be stable and optimizing what you're doing? I just want to get a pulse for the overall community here. And with that, we'll dive in as Jenna's asking that question. So we'll go through 3 different topics today. We'll start with vision. Then we'll dive into metrics, and then we'll dive into, well, what are these teams actually doing when we come to 2022? So let's start with vision. So I'd love to ask the panel, at the highest level, what is the vision for customer success within your business? And then we'll kind of tackle that from a few different angles. So I'll take a brave volunteer to dive in on that.
I'm happy to be first. So the big thing that's happening for us, we are early days at Yak, and we are doing some category creation. Because asynchronous work is new, remote work is new, everything's new. How do we figure out these things? And so lots of people come to us at lots of different levels of comfortability with asynchronous working. And so we have to find out, like, is this someone that I just need to help build awareness of this category as a thing? Or is this person considering what they're doing? Or is this somebody who has converted, right? They are embracing this. Is this someone that's going to be loyal to this? Or is this an advocate, right? And we need to say different things to those people in terms of product marketing, in terms of onboarding, in terms of which resources we're sharing. And so the big thing that we're doing as we're setting a vision for what we're doing is thinking about, okay, how do we segment our customer base? Like not just with like team size and like potential to pay, but also like segmenting based upon their understanding of what it is our product even does. Right. And so how do we tailor our messaging and our customer communication, and who maybe we might even say, oh, this person should serve these type of people because of these things. Like Tyler is a podcaster in the remote space. He probably is best serving those kind of advanced asynchronous work teams. Whereas the some of the more junior people on our team are probably better suited to be working with the people that are just considering or just even any amount of awareness of things. So one of the things that we're doing is setting the vision for who belongs to whom and what types of messages we want to send to those people.
That's great.
I can jump in from my perspective. So one of the things, I'm pretty new at my company, by the way. I've been here for about 5 months. And one of the things that I loved about RevolutionParts was they separated their customer success team into start smart and stay smart. And that just resonates with me so well. In our industry, it's really important that you focus in on rapid adoption quickly. And that's what Start Smart is all about. It includes implementation and it includes onboarding. So we actually have a team of customer success managers that focus on the adoption. For the Stay Smart side of the business, that is actually our support team and our longer term Stay Smart CSMs. And that's where we're really kind of forming up what value means to our customers. We're identifying the 3 key reasons why customers are purchasing. We're mapping that to our product and we're creating the value tracks to get the customers to be successful there. And we're doubling down on making it so it's really easy to identify what the QBRs look like, what toolkits we're providing to those customers, depending on where they're at in the journey, and then mapping out the white space to get them to fill in the 3 different areas of it. So that's kind of what our vision is for this year, is to get that whole plan and strategy mapped out and executed with account segmentation, so we can talk to them in the right channels to get that message communicated.
Yeah,
I love
Jennifer,
all that segmentation in there. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I really like the Stay Smart and Start Smart sort of division. We found a few years ago that we introduced an onboarding and implementation team as a dedicated effort within CS for just this reason. I think the cadences, the intensity, the types of relationships and challenges you face at that stage of the relationship are just very different. And for us, what we've done to really lean into that is that our implementation team also is involved in the late stages of the sales process. So they are both a pre-sales and an implementation team. And so it allows us to really establish in an unambiguous way what the onboarding and the time to value will look like, and to make sure that we can have continuity so that we don't lose that momentum at the point of deal signature, which I think happens in so many organizations. And it's an easy thing to take aside because it can be such a long process to get a deal done. But we've found that involving that onboarding team in the pre-sales has really helped that. And I guess, speaking to the initial prompt on sort of the vision for us, and our client base is predominantly an enterprise one, which means that on balance, I think we lean toward higher touch models than sort of a high scale sort of SMB model, for example. Although we have also found that introducing client segmentation has been an important part of scaling effectively. For us, the organizing principle behind our vision is really trust. And we want to establish the kind of trusted relationships where our clients recognize our expertise in the area and where they're seeking our guidance, not just on how to use RapidRatings and how to think about financial health, but the broader landscape of supplier and third-party relationship management. And that's really consistent with the vision that we go to market with our product for, right? Which is to say to these companies, financial health analytics and risk management is really about increasing the level of trust that you have with your business partners. And when you do that, you can collaborate more effectively. And so we, as the vendor side of all of our customer relationships, try to really embody that transparency and trust in the way that we're engaging with folks.
That's great. So I hear a lot of, themes across, the different visions here, customer success, in the middle of a great many things, right? Whether it's sales or it's product and what we're educating folks on. Would love to hear, how do those visions come to life cross-functionally, right? So these are pretty big things and they require a lot of partners across the org to make those things happen. Are there other kind of key stakeholders that are kind of hand in hand with you on these customer success visions?
Everyone.
Everyone.
It is definitely a company initiative. And I know that that's what everyone says these days, but it's absolutely true. I have to say that I've always appreciated partnering with my sales teams, with my marketing teams, with my product teams. And I feel like right now with where we're at our stage, we're pretty high growth right now. Everyone is in lockstep. And we're really kind of focused on it in the right way and driving that longer term value. So, and you called out about how it's really important to work with your sales team to start getting customer success involved earlier to have those conversations. we're doing the same thing, but we need to scale it back a little bit. It's a little bit less about getting involved in the sales calls. They're going to be those like really strategic customers where we need to do that. But we're actually working and partnering with our product marketing team and our customer marketing team to give our sales team the tools that they need to have the conversations and to kind of prepare them for what to expect in those initial stages and the level of effort that it's going to take for them to drive that value. So that's just like one of the areas that I'm putting a lot of time and energy in today, is making sure that the four of us are really in lockstep and having the same conversation, just at different stages.
Yeah, that really resonates with me, Jennifer. We're definitely, and I know, Tyler, you spoke about product marketing. We're doing the same thing at Quala, like working hand in hand with product marketing and sales to make sure that we're all aligned with our messaging. And that's been a huge part of even our vision for next year, is just leaning into really establishing like what our processes are, and being able to continually iterate on what we're doing and take that feedback from customers and work with each other to make sure that we're continuing to be aligned. So that really resonates with me and what we're doing.
Well, one of the things that I'm hearing a lot of us saying is that like so often when you think about cross-functional relationships, like customer success is living inside of that gap between the product itself, right, and the marketing or sales teams, right? And we're saying, okay, hey, marketing team, what if we educated customers in these ways a little bit closer to what we actually can provide? Maybe even like which customers we are attracting, right, is closer to our ideal client. And also on the flip side, we're saying to the product team, hey, can we have one less screen? Maybe one less click, right? And then that gap gets closed and we can let the robots do the robotic things. And then the humans can go show up where it's more useful to be there. So when we're talking about scaling, right, it's not just saying, okay, we're going to add headcount, right? It's also saying, all right, less of what needs done is belonging to the humans that are inside of that team. And you can increase capacity by taking robotic processes off of the plate of humans, right? And letting those things exist inside of the product or inside of a scalable education program that happens away from people being on a call. I think that's really a big part of what asynchronous like means, right? As we work with teams, is to say, okay, it needs to be a part of the product, or it needs to be part of our marketing, or the things that are one to many, or the things that are tech touch, right, can really be provided for every customer, no matter the segment, right? And now there's a better foundation for which to have the customer success conversations that we do get to have.
What you're just saying right there about the scaled is for everybody, 100% in alignment there. Kind of drilling into our customer base, one of the things that we've noticed is that customers aren't following our best practices for two reasons. One, they're not hearing the best practices, and two, they don't trust the best practices. So getting that scaled approach and foundation and thought leadership out there, and getting webinars and getting more emails and more videos to people to help build that trust and that continuity, and to make it so it's more likely that our customers will hear the best practice is going to give us a better platform when we have the personal conversation and the personal coaching sessions on how they can adapt those and leverage those. So like I love that you just called that out, because that's reinforcing like, yeah, we're on to something.
Yeah, and look, I think the CSMs I think they do play a unique role in that they, in many ways, are sort of the eyes and ears to the client community for organizations, and in that way can really enrich the work that product marketing is doing, that product is doing. But I also think that as CS leaders, it's important to elevate the customer or the client to be sort of strategically central across functions, to sort of get that alignment. And some of that happens by influencing corporate level goals to which the whole company has line of sight, so that they speak to client values. And some of it means doing things like this, like building robust communities around your product, so that you can make it really difficult for anybody in your company to not hear about and hear from the clients directly, right? So we've done client advisory boards, we do an annual client summit, we do webinars, and I think that we often think about this kind of content strategy as being sort of a powerful marketing tool, which it is. to the market, but it's equally important to align internally, because you need to make sure that somebody who may not be on the end point, who may not have direct customer interaction, understands that they're just as important to creating that customer value as the person shaking hands or signing the contract or taking the call. And so for us, that's been a really important thing, just making sure our clients are visible and that folks internally are hearing from them.
I love that. I love that. And that I think you had a good segue in there, Nitin, to, you talked about, internal goals. One of the things I want us to dive into, we've led a lot of ground on vision. This is really awesome. Love to hear, how you're tracking that back to, tangible goals, metrics that your different teams are going to look at. Be curious to see how those things have evolved from this year versus going into next year and how you're thinking about those.
We're mostly, I'll say it this way, we're mostly pre-revenue. And so like the most important things for us is 30-day retention of users, right? Because when you talk about, early days for a product, early days for a category, right? There, revenue is oftentimes going to be like even more of a lagging indicator.
Right.
And so for us, like we're really trying to drive toward awareness of the category and then awareness to our product inside of that category. I was mentioning it earlier, right? We think about those people that are maybe accidentally asynchronous, that they happen to be working in documents or project management, those sorts of things. And that just kind of by nature, like are those types of tools. Well, you can use, our product in the same way, right? So it could be, at that level. Okay, but how do we encourage you to then like kind of hear and listen to the opinions of our product? Okay, so what are the metrics that go with that, right? The answer is, okay, did you use it more than you did before you interacted with us, right? Did you use it more this month than you did the previous month? Right? Did you start using this part of the feature set that is adjacent to what you started with? Right? These are things that, oftentimes if you don't have really strong product data yet attached to customer data, you need to do that. Like that's really, really important and is like, here's a plug for all the products like Quala and other ways to get, the data pipes to point towards, CRM data or other places that your customer stuff lives. It's gotta be next to the contact information, right? The product data of this person, here is that person, right? And how to contact them. Like you've got to put those things next to each other and start tracking it as a part of your reporting dashboards to say, okay, here's how we're doing about, this feature, that, add on this specific usage metric, like, and then mapping that back to individuals too, if that's what you need to be doing, right? I think it's really important to say, okay, what stage of company are you? Are you trying to drive towards an acquisition or an IPO, or are you just trying to like demonstrate that this is a product that should exist? Those are considerations that need to be made.
That's great.
Our metrics, we are redefining our top level metrics. We are focusing in on net MRR retention as our number one goal. We do own expansions on our side of the house. And then also with CSQLs being a component of that. So driving referrals within our business. A lot of that is just because of where we're at as a company and the nature of the automotive industry and the way that dealerships are structured and organized. There's a lot of opportunity to reinforce value and success by growth. Now, that being said, I love net MRR retention because growth is such a big factor into that. Like for me, like I don't want to overexpand my customers and then have a churn problem later on. So I really care about making sure that I have that health. So some of the things that we're looking at in terms of leading indicators is in our Start Smart team, we're redefining what it means for a customer to graduate Start Smart. And we're figuring out what the perfect equation is for us to say, okay, they're a grade A, which means that they have been communicated what they need to do to adopt, and they have adopted, all the way down to they have adopted but haven't been communicated it. They've not been communicated, or they've been communicated it, but they haven't adopted it, or else like they're D, and it's like we need to get fresh blood in there to try to like reinvigorate this relationship. So that's what we're setting up on that side of the business. And so it's a little bit of adoption metrics. It's a little bit of what we've done to communicate and to talk to them. On our Stay Smart side of the business, we're really looking at how often we're talking to our customers, but making sure that we know what to talk to our customers about. So we have a really big initiative that we're putting underway right now to identify what one of the 3 Venn diagram circles in that customer is focusing on for that quarter, or for that half of the year, or for that whole year, and saying, okay, how much progress are they making towards that specific goal? And then filling in and saying, which of the 3 have they already found success in? So we can say this is the whole like white space opportunity versus what we're targeting right now. And then rolling that into our scorecards that we're going to be building.
That's great. I love I love how you all are thinking about, there's the top level thing that, the CEO is pitching on, we need more revenue, we need retention. But, when you're in the trenches, that's such a lagging indicator. You need all the pieces that ladder up to what will ultimately be, your ultimate score, right, on retention or net MRR retention. That's great.
And I think, Mike, for us, sometimes the tension there, the challenge can be how prescriptive to be with those granular tactical indicators that aren't the top level ones. Because I think that we also look heavily at gross and net retention, right? That's an important metric. We also look at sort of activity on the platform, dialogue engagement. We look at not only our ability to expand, but our forecast accuracy. So we want to know obviously how much revenue we're retaining, but we also want to know, can the CSMs anticipate when there's a problem? Have they been good at predicting which clients are going to grow and which are not? Because, maintaining and growing a client is a team sport, and losing a client is a team sport too. And it can be easy to, put a loss on the CS organization or on the CS team. And sometimes we're absolutely responsible, and other times, we've been dealt a hard hand. So we want to at least acknowledge if folks have good accuracy in identifying that, launching a mitigation effort. To us, those kinds of things are equally important. But then we also think about respecting really the incredible talent and skill and insight that our CSMs bring, and saying, look, we want to give you visibility into these high level metrics so that and you have clarity about goals. But we don't want to overprescribe the ground level metrics, because we want to make sure those folks have the autonomy to do things in the way that's going to be most effective, because typically they're going to be better at figuring out how to get that goal than I am, or than their frontline manager is. So, we provide a pretty wide dashboard of analytics and KPIs that everybody in the org has access to, but there's only a handful that we sort of strictly tie folks to and monitor as a group.
Gotcha.
I love
That's really interesting.
I love that approach of the flexibility and focusing on the forecast accuracy, because for me, that's like second stage, right? That's next phase of my journey here at Revolution Parts, because one, I need to understand the groundwork and see what I'm working with. Once you get to the point where you have that groundwork and you can tell whether or not people are doing good at the forecasting, you can really open up the fluidity and the ownership of them being able to drive their accounts in the way that they need to drive it, because you have faith and trust that the business is going to be moving in the direction that we say that it's going to be moving. And then that's when you start unlocking a lot of really cool opportunities to find new value points, or a new way to approach a problem, or a new way to handle a mitigate or a risk that you need to mitigate. So I love that. Stealing that one for next year.
That's very cool.
Yeah,
I mean, definitely something. Go ahead, Lauren.
Oh, no, you can go ahead, Mike.
I'll defer to you.
Oh, okay. No, I was going to say it's really nice to hear both of you like speak, because I'm in the same boat as Tyler. Like, we're very early stage. So this is like all aspirational, and, in my previous experience, things we were doing. I think for anyone that's like early stage, it's really about setting just like benchmark levels. And that's kind of where I'm at, is like really just establishing, consistently, quarter over quarter, what are those usage metrics? What are those engagement metrics? What are we What are we looking for benchmarks? So, anyone that's in the audience that's early stage and it's like, wow, that's a really built out, metrics that you're using. Like early stage, you're just trying to get those things kind of like laid out and have a good game plan of how are we going to increase and move things in the direction we want to move quarter over quarter. And I think that's where I'm currently at. And it sounds like, Tyler, you're probably like similar boat.
Yeah. Health scoring can come later.
Yeah. I'm lucky I have a health score to like plug right in. So I'm leaning on that.
That actually,
so
I've sort of got a question for Tyler and Lauren on that end. I mean, Tyler, you pointed out, I think, the value and importance of bringing that data together, which is, 80% of the way to being able to compute a health score.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess for you as someone at an early stage company, and Lauren, obviously as an emerging expert at Quala, where in the scale journey do you think that kind of consolidation of data and platform has the sort of biggest opportunity to really impact sort of forward success?
Well, I would just say, like, number one, like, you need to have it happen sooner or as soon as possible so that there can be some amount of historical reference, right? Because 6 months from now, we want to be able to say, okay, these people were successful and these people churned, right? And so like how do you even know which things are leading indicators of customer health unless you have historical data, right? And so you can do some anecdata type things of like, okay, here is someone that I've talked to and like kind of fits what we're building for. And they're in that segment of people that like we would be hoping to see achieve the goals that we're kind of like thinking. But even that is in flux, right? Because the product team is doing, like user interviews and building on top of what exists with the people that are using it for now and those sorts of things. So, JT is in the chat is saying like, hey, health scores are important in the early days too. Of course it is, right? But like, what is even a determining factor of what is healthy and unhealthy unless you have the historical data to be able to identify, okay, we want more like this and less like that, right? It's just too soon to be determinative, right? And it needs to be like, I would even encourage like later stage people to stay reflective about the current state, right? Like we work in sprints, even inside of the customer experience team, right? And so we're going to say, okay, we're going to try this messaging for these 2 weeks. And we're going to say at the end of those 2 weeks, how did that feel? What went well? What didn't go so well? What'd you learn? What's still puzzling us? Like those are the types of things that we're doing like at that early stage to say, okay, the volume is low enough that you can almost not even make it's statistically insignificant what even happened, right? So we're going to have to make some infer and imply and like educated guesses that are going to happen with the, I'm a former math teacher. So, like when I say like, no, seriously, statistical significance like does not exist right now because the volume is so not there yet. Right. So, we're going to get there. But we have to have the data to be able to even make those guesses in the first place.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. Like establishing that historical, like just saying like, hey, we're going to measure this and we're going to measure it over time is like the first step in the right direction. One thing that like, as I talk to customers and doing it myself, it's reflecting on like those customers that actually churn, like go back and see what they had and you're learning as you're doing. So I think the big thing is, like he said, the reflective, but just continually iterating on what you're doing is super important early stage. Not putting stakes in the ground too early. Like if I said, we're going to hit this number and then it's just not an attainable number, like then I'm not doing anything good for myself or for my team. So it's really about saying, okay, this is what we're aspiring to, or this is like best practice, but like, this is where we're at right now. and like how do we learn from every customer's journey to improve understanding like what is a good customer, what is a good customer experience, and it's just building off of that over time. So yeah, I think it is like establishing stuff, learning from it, and then just continuing to iterate and being open to making changes as you go, as you learn.
Thank you.
Cool. That's great. So we've done some setup on, vision, on metrics, some great discussion. We'd love to hear, tactically, as we're getting into 2022, what are some of those key initiatives, that you'll have for your teams to help live into this vision, achieve some of these goals that we've set out here?
Well, we have like broad awareness inside of like the startup space. Like people like when I say this is where I work, like lots of times people will be like, oh, I've heard of them, yeah, but oh, you guys do something with audio, something, and so like I think the thing that we want to be able to emphasize is, okay, we've got enough like brand awareness and like adjacency inside of the remote space to say, okay, now you've come to say, I'd like to be more asynchronous, right? We've heard about this asynchronous work. We want to start hiring outside of our time zone or outside of our geography. We want to be able to stay collaborative. We want to stay innovative inside of our teams, but want to be able to do it not necessarily from all at once, right? We can do it on our own time. We want to be able to take those people that are accidentally or alert async is what I like to say is those people that have started using Slack and there's just notifications in your face. Like those people like need to be invited and educated into like a more enlightened state, right? To say, you know what, you don't always have to be on a video conference, right? You can choose to do things that are like kind of like by default recorded so they can be shared easily and kind of have some persistence to what got talked about. Those are things that we want to like even just start giving people the baby steps towards that. Because you can save a lot of time if your weekly stand-up, right, is in a tool like Yak, and you're doing it with, on 2x speed, right? Or you can screen share, and it be something that you can do on your own time, right? So like we want to be able to educate people to baby steps. And then for the people that are ready to make the, astronaut leap to the moon, right? We're going to be able to take them there too.
That's great.
Well, the question was the consistency, right? No, I think that was what my answer was going to be.
It was, the question was on initiatives, right? So if you boil it down, like here's the 3, 4, 5 things that, I'm going to tell my team when we kick off 2022, here's what the work we're going to do as a team together next year to live into this vision, to hit these metrics we've talked about.
Great. Okay. So for us, it's going to be the value, having every single human within our company know what the 3 key drivers of value are. And it's like what the customer is trying to accomplish, right? And then having every single team know how they drive, having customers recognize that. And when I say recognize that, it's being aware that that is what they should be trying to focus on and recognize the toolkits that they have available to them to be successful. So for our Stay Smart side of the business, one of the key things that we're doing is we're building out a map to have a consistent approach to QBR. So like, how do you evaluate the health of an account? How do you ask the right questions? How do you figure out if the answer when you're asking these questions and like through the numbers, through the data, you're seeing this happen? Here's the toolkit, and here are the things that you can do and that you can recommend to the customer to be successful, just to drive a lot more consistency. And that's going to help drive our scaled approach as well, because we'll be able to talk about that in webinars. We're going to be able to talk about that automatically when it's, hey, I see this happening within the account because of the data, so I can trigger something off to the customer and say, you might need to do this. You might need to change your strategy on the selling channel, for example. One of the things that William asked is, do you approach this differently for SaaS versus full service? I don't know at what point he asked that, but it's another part of our initiatives this year. We do have an agency team. So we do have professional services that our customers can purchase to help them be more successful on the platform. So it's really also figuring out and aligning how those value journeys and value stories and those toolkits interlap, and at what point it's appropriate to recommend a professional service instead of just using professional services as an expansion opportunity. Like, we want to make sure that we're aligning it correctly for our customers for where they're at in the tool.
We share a goal for the year ahead of really increasing awareness and facility with sort of business value concepts. And in part, that's tied to an initiative we're undertaking to significantly increase the responsibilities that our CSMs have for commercial management of existing programs, both renewal and expansion. And to do that well, I think we need to augment and complement the really rich product expertise and client empathy that we've been really good at with a deeper understanding of the business value. And I think historically, I would say certainly in our earliest days, I think we had a view that in CS we could establish more trusted relationships by sort of keeping distance from the commercial conversations. This sort of, I think, outdated transactional conception of like sales versus service. And I think what we have really leaned into and come to understand better than we did in the past is that business value is about mutual gain. And so as long as you understand the drivers of value, then having a commercial conversation is a good and easy and natural thing. And so building an EBR template, Jennifer, that speaks as much to business value as it does to utilization and engagement and activity and product feedback is a pretty important goal for us. And then we're also focused really as we scale on bringing in a platform and better automating our engagement with clients so that we can take a lot of the data that we're collecting today, but we can build better automated triggers and workflows and monitoring, especially for the segment of clients that don't have a dedicated CSM. So those are all important things to us. And I guess the final thing we're working on, or the next sort of big thing we're working on, I'm curious if any of you have experience with some of the conversational intelligence tools and platforms, because for us, that feels like a really powerful way to increase consistency, but also sort of get insights across the client base so that we can bubble up and unearth common conversational topics and patterns.
I come from that, actually. I was at a conversational AI platform for about 6 years. Okay. And I think that there's a ton of opportunity there. So we're not at the point yet where I'm ready to bring it in-house at RevolutionParts, but I think that there's tons of value in streamlining a lot of those consistent conversations that you need to have using AI. And then you don't lose the feedback. You don't lose the responses because it's tracked and it's aggregated in a tool. Where right now today, if you're having those conversations over the phone, you have to rely on your team, like logging notes and knowing what to log, and that's not as consistent. But
well, I guess then, and sorry, Mike, keep an eye on the clock for me, but I'll ask a variation of the question I asked Lauren and Tyler earlier. As someone who's come from conversational AI, what are the characteristics I should look for in the organization to know now's the right time or now's a good time to bring that kind of a technology?
There are a lot of different types of conversational AI platforms that are out there. So you could have 3 different ones successfully running in your organization, and it would be great, right? So I would say if it's your support team and you understand that there are a lot of questions that are being asked over and over again, and you have a good knowledge base set up, and you can layer in like a chat on top of it that can help streamline how to like process those and how to drive it, then you're in a good point. For us, for the product that I worked with, we were more focused on streamlining like the CSM conversations or scheduling appointments. So we would be in a good point to use something like Conversica, where I used to work, when when I have a process pretty well defined and I know that I need to interject at a certain point, I could put AI in to do that proactive outreach. But you kind of have to have your journey mapped out well enough to be able to interlay it in.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
I'll add a little on this since we're actively digging into this topic at Quala, right? Is, we hear when customer success teams grow, right? And once, the leaders of those teams and the leaders of those leaders in their teams start to have just a little bit more distance from their customers, right? I mean, there's no substitute for a great customer conversation and being right there. But once you get to dozens or hundreds or thousands of customers, you can't possibly hear all of that. And we're hearing a real need in the market to make sense of that, right? So what is going into all of these great notes that are now buried in your CRM or in your CSP? What are actually our customers and our teams emailing back and forth about? And so without getting pitchy, we're doing something like that, and we'll share that with the whole community right after Thanksgiving. But we see that as a real opportunity in the market to make sense of that.
Looking forward to that one.
Yeah, likewise.
Awesome.
Well, I think one of the things that I would say, like to make it even less pitchy, Mike, is to just build the processes and procedures around that behavior of getting things out of the notes, of getting things out of the conversational AI tool, this, that, or whatever, right? Is to say, when someone has an idea, how does it get captured? And then what is done with that artifact, right? If you have a clear path for that information to reach decision makers that need that information, it can get acted on. If it dies in the notes, right, it will die in the notes, right? So I think even bringing it back to early stage type stuff, right, is to say that you can have the barest 0.1 MVP of that process before you're ready for any type of tool. Is to just say, anytime that you hear something that doesn't exist in the product, right, it needs to have an issue in the project management, period. Right. And eventually you'll have a product leader that will want to have that information to do something with it. Right. And even to know which churned customers to reach back out to. Right. I mean, there's I think it's really important to not just thinking about scaling up, right, but also scaling down to the earliest versions of what has become massive pains that the tool is the aspirin for, right? Okay, so just have the Google Sheet version of your issues that have come up, right? Or even less than a Google Sheet, like whatever it is, have a way that it gets organized and then can be acted upon.
Great. So we have about 10 minutes left to go. I know we had a few questions kind of rolling in, so I want to make sure we left a little bit of time here for Q&A at the end. All right, got our first one from Jenna. I'm just reading it here. I'll just read it verbatim. Nitin, get warmed up because I think it's for you. Nitin mentioned the importance of elevating the customer to company level strategy. How do you align customer values to company goals?
So I think I'll speak for how we do it at RapidRatings, and I'm sure there's a lot we're leaving on the table. So I'll sort of caveat with that. But we do a few things. So the first thing is that when we are setting high-level corporate goals, CS leadership is active in that process, right? So I'm sort of at the table. My colleagues are at the table, and so at a very basic level, we are weighing in and impacting what those high-level goals are. I think the second way that we do it is, and this is, I think, a fairly common technique, but across the organization, we have sort of cascading goals down with line of sight, so that when we get down to the client support level or the CSM level and they have a tactical set of goals or objectives, they can understand and see very clearly how it maps to the high-level financial goals and corporate goals. And then I would say that in many ways, the most important piece is, again, just keeping the clients front and center, which means really, so for example, we have an executive sponsorship program, which means every member of our ELT has established relationships across a series of clients, and those clients span industries, use cases, geographies, so that no matter what role you're in and no matter where you are functionally, if you're a senior leader at this company, you've got direct client relationships. And so, those clients are, again, they're going to make sure you don't forget what's important to them, what's working well, and where they could get more value. So we do things like executive sponsorship. We do things like advisory boards. We do client summits. And then our EBRs are published for the whole company to review. So our whole company has access to the EBR reports. The SLT in particular sort of reviews and discusses those. We have sort of open commenting on client EBRs so that when things are coming up that look significant or substantial and it's for a key client, that folks can weigh in and there's visibility there.
That's great.
Nitin, I have a quick follow-up question for you, because I love everything that you're doing with like the sponsorships and the advisory boards. How long did it take for you to get to that point? Like, because I know it took me about 5 years to get to that point in a previous role, and I'm wondering if I can make that faster.
Yeah, no, I mean, so I would build on Lauren and Tyler's comments from earlier and say, in many ways, if you can identify sort of MVP versions of these things early on, I think it's great, because it helps you to set it helps you to set an early cultural precedent that these things are important, and centering your business around the client is important. Practically speaking, for us, it's about the same time as you. So 4 or 5 years in is when we introduced the advisory board, introduced the client summit. The executive sponsor program came sort of a year or two later. The other thing that we did was we include delivery operations and analytics all under the banner of client success. So our conception at the organizational level of what client success is broader and more expansive than sort of CSM's implementation and support. And that's a deliberate choice, right? And one that's endorsed at the highest levels of our company, again, to make sure folks remember that, if you are involved in delivering the product, you're a customer success professional. And that, again, it doesn't matter whether you're the endpoint or the relationship manager. And so, little cues like that and nudges like that, I think, can reinforce to your team and to the broader client community that this centering around their interests is something you take seriously.
I love that.
Thank you.
We have another question on the Q&A here. We're talking about these teams, panel. How do we keep teams engaged and motivated towards goals, especially amidst lots of change, right? So we're kind of in this new normal, right? During COVID, and I know there can be lots of different changes in different companies, especially rapidly growing companies. How do you keep those teams engaged and motivated towards goals?
I'll take that one to start with. I really think it's really important. So first of all, I want to name drop someone who's been really valuable to me as a heroine of leadership, is Brene Brown. Her book Dare to Lead is like a really pithy summarization of her research so far, and pointed directly at like business leaders. And so two ideas from her work that I would emphasize in how to help people stay motivated inside of change, inside of like a place where we're asking people to be adaptable and resilient, right? Is to say, number one, that power is not finite. It is infinite, right? When it is shared, right? So if we imagine that decision making and good ideas are held inside of a small space that must be extracted, right? That is all there will be. Whereas if we remove those barriers and invite the input from every part of the organization and even outside of the organization, right? Nitin's talking about, client advisory and executive sponsorship, like all of these types of ways of saying like, no, we do not know everything. And we would like to learn from you and your experience of our product, of our team, of like if you have an invitational tone and like say, okay, we're going to embrace the uncertainty. We're going to embrace the uncomfortable nature of like being vulnerable and saying like, we don't have it all figured out. There are ways for you to find out some things that you didn't know. Right. And then you're going to be able to take action on those things that you learned. And so I just want to say two things that just to say, okay, number one, share the power that is imbued by your position with your whole team and with the people that you interact with. And then number two, to be invitational, to say there is more to be gained. Come further up, come further in. Right. There is an opportunity for us to do things that we haven't done yet. Do you have ideas about what those might be?
That's great. Very, very exciting. Cool. So we are just about up. So I want to say a special thank you to Jennifer, Nitin, Lauren, Tyler. Awesome community hour. I really enjoyed learning from all of you and hearing from all of you. For the community, we'll circulate a recording and we'll do a short summary on our blog as well, which we'll post at some point early towards the end of the week or next week. But again, a huge thank you to everybody. We'll keep everybody posted on our next community hour. If you had any questions on Quala throughout this, feel free to hit me up at mike@quala.io. You can also press the little request Quala info up at the top, and hope everybody has a great rest of your day today and a very happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate
Thanks, Mike.
the conversation.
Great. Thank you, panel.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, everybody.
Wow.
Bye.